Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Once again, I'm playing my beloved green-black Turbodepths deck. This deck is quite well positioned given the amount of tempo decks in the meta right now, so I'm excited to give it another go on the channel for you lovely people. We have Dark Depths here, comes in with 10 counters on. We remove the counters with Hexmage, that gives us a 2020 indestructible flyer. We make a copy of it with Thespian stage, that also gives us a 2020 indestructible flyer. We've got a bunch of tutors to find our pieces. We've got some Once Upon a Time to smooth out our opening hands. We've got some fast mana to power out quickly. And various protections. So we've got Hand Disruption, we've got Pithing Needles for things like Wasteland and Caracas. We have Disruptor Flute, which can name those things, as well as also making Swords to Plowshares cost too much mana. And Not of This World to stop a Caracas or Swords to Plowshares on our creature. Our mana base is Fetchland based. I've been enjoying the Fetchland mana base since I switched to it from doing Rainbow a long time ago. And it just does seem the best way to run the deck in my opinion. We've got a few silver bullets like Sejiri Steppe, Ghost Quarter, Boseiju and Bojuka Bog we can also draw upon. If you are interested in this deck, please follow the link in the description to my Patreon, where I have some detailed guides, an over 50-page guide on this deck, and I post regular sideboarding updates and all sorts of stuff like that. So if this is your jam, by all means check it out. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Leyline and Voids, some Sylvan Safekeepers, which can be found with our Once Upon a Time to help against the removal-based decks. Same with the Not of This World here. We've got 4 Abrupt Decay, which can hit all the problem cards, whether it's Ensnaring Bridge or Maze of the Moon, Harbinger of the Seas, all that sort of thing. We've got ourselves a couple of Collector Ouphes, 3 Collector Ouphes for your Karn Forge and Storm decks and whatnot, and just another Disruptor Flute as a flexible thing. I'm always tempted to trim 1 Collector Ouphe for another Disruptor Flute. Maybe we'll try that today. Alright, we're going to go up to 2 Disruptor Flutes and only 2 Collector Ouphes and see how that feels. Alright, just made that slight change in the sideboard. If you need to buy any cards, remember to check out 3-for-1 Trading. They do have a sale on right now, so definitely have a crack on that if you're looking for any little parts for Legacy or Pre-Modern or anything else really. Link is in the description. Like and subscribe, and let's just get started. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from Team Trios to Old School and Pre-Modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. Okay, so what would we be trying to do with this hand? Probably something along the lines of a turn 1 Thoughtseize, and then we crop rotate them, but we're still not able to combo off, so I think we should mulligan for something that has a bit more of a chance of going off. This one, for example, works quite nicely. We can put back a Dark Depths, I think, here. Or was it a Pithing Needle? Maybe it's a Pithing Needle. Because we can use this Dark Depths and sacrifice it to a crop rotation so that we don't really lose very much that way. Underground Sea. And a Ponder. Sure. Right, I'm going to crack this for... I think it has to be a Bayou at this point. We're going to try... Actually, I'm going to play this Lotus Petal first. And then I'm going to play the Pithing Needle on Wasteland. This way that we can pay for days if we want to. So our opponent's answers to a Marit Lage will depend a lot on what particular deck they are. If they're like a blue-black tempo deck, then they're not going to have very many. They're going to have 1 Brazen Borrower. Okay. Inquisition of Kozilek's pretty annoying. You don't normally see Inquisition of Kozilek's out of a tempo-y deck, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something different here. Okay, so they might just have a counter spell for our Hexmage here, because we are representing a Marit Lage next turn. They could just have another piece of discard here, though. Italian, okay. So we could play around days by just playing out the forest here. Like, why wouldn't they take the Hexmage when it's face up in front of them? I think we play the forest out first. This at least gives us a daze. The downside here is if our opponent has another piece of hand disruption. Okay, crop rotation is not unhelpful. Okay, if we don't have to worry about wasteland, so we can do this in our opponent's end step. So probably going to crack this clue digging for an answer. They would like to fatal push our guy. Well, we have another 2020 available off of this Dark Depth soon anyway. So we'll force them into having to answer this. So they could have something like a Kaito here, but that would involve us not blocking. Okay, they do have the Brazen Borrower. 4 cards on our opponent's hand. Let's try and crop rotation to beat this. Right, they have a Force of Will for that. Alright, so we are set back a ways here. And Not of This World. A little bit late there. So we need 2 draws, really, to get a Marit Lage going. So our opponent's got at least 2 turns. Probably going to end up cracking some clues. I'm going to take out one of our only resources we have. Cool. But yeah, our opponent had to have like a whole bunch of stuff there for it to work. Let's play out this Pithing Needle. Seasoned Scholar. So that's the backside of Tamiyo. So they're incentivized not to flip the Tamiyo and just keep getting clues, which is honestly sometimes the best way of playing with the Tamiyo anyway. A Lotus Petal. We'll play it so it doesn't get discarded out of our hand. So now we just need to draw a Thespian stage and we're good. Our opponent has not put us under any pressure life total wise. Okay, Wasteland, we don't care about that because of our Pithing Needle. Our opponent's already used a Brazen Borrower. If they are blue-black, then they probably have 2 borrowers. If they're splashing, then they probably have just the 1. Borrower can obviously block our Marit Lage token. There it is. So Kaito is the thing we have to worry about here. So if we go and block, they can just put in a Kaito and kill us. So we just have to take the... Okay, they are going to be chump blocking this turn, aren't they? Alright, let's make a 2020. Just a Sejiri Steppe off the top would have been nice, but no. Okay, let's dress our opponent first. Force of Will, Brainstorm, Fatal Push. Okay, I'm going to take the Brainstorm. And leave our opponent with... Actually, I think our opponent should have forced that, to be honest. Right, we'll just keep sending this. They got a blocker for 1 turn. They got a blocker for another turn. Sure. They're going to flip this into the side that doesn't do anything. But it's, you know, still a game object. Maybe it becomes relevant later on. Oh, sorry, they didn't get flip, actually. They only drew 2 cards. Why are they cracking the clues then? Surely they want to crack them before they block in case they find a borrower. If they have more... The fact they're still playing this game suggests they do have more borrowers, and there it is. Okay. So that's both the borrowers in our opponent's deck. The only decks that I tend to see with more than 2 are the reanimated decks. So our opponent could be a reanimated deck still, if they have more of them. Right, this is not a useful card given our opponent's double Force of Will hand over there. But again, like, let's say they didn't have that Thoughtseize earlier. And just had, like, some creature instead, like a Bowmasters or whatever. Then we'd have had the Not of This World. And that would have forced the Force out of our opponent's hand. Okay, so now the Barrago is going to start rumbling. We're getting close to losing this one. Okay, so we're going to lose our crop rotation. We're not firing off into this known Force of Will. I don't think we have much recourse here. Thoughtseize, I guess I'll get a little bit more information on the way out here. I don't need to continue playing that one. Alright, so we got a tempo-y style matchup. This is kind of like our bread and butter matchup, and it's pretty good for us as a general rule. They are probably boarding in 1 Shoulder's Edict on top of the things they already had. This is not really a matchup where we require Bojuka Bog. I don't believe they're playing Reanimator. We saw too many things to make me think they have that package in. So we can take out a Bojuka Bog and gain access to something like an Abrupt Decay. If they're just straight blue-black, they're going to have some amount of Harbinger of the Seas. So these are a thing that we are somewhat interested in. Inquisition of Kozilek is much better than the Duress here because this hits the Brazen Borrower, which is one of the few cards we actually care about. If we're boarding in these sorts of things, we're boarding out some Once Upon a Times, and that gets us the 3rd Decay. If you're boarding in creatures that you want to hit, or lands, then I tend to have the Once Upon a Times in. Obviously, we don't have any lands in the version of this sideboard, but I sometimes play things like Boseiju in the sideboard. I will keep this. We have 2020 with Protection. Now, Wasteland is a card our opponent is running that they can do some amount of things with. Let's just play out this Urborg, and we can go from there. Our hand is pretty good at beating discard because our combo pieces are lands. If we draw a Hexmage, we can go for it on turn 2, knowing that we can then go for it on turn 3 as well. We do need to be wary of Wasteland taking out our Dark Depths and setting us back. We drew the Hexmage. Alright, let's just go for it right now. Black, black. So if they don't counterspell this, then we get a 2020. They do counterspell this with the Force of Will. Or they're dazing instead. So the one thing we don't want to see this turn is a Wasteland. Not a Wasteland. Excellent. There's a Tamiyo. We don't care about that. We know our opponent's got a Force of Will in hand. So if they have to block, we can just Abrupt Decay this out of the way next turn. But they have 2 Brazen Borrowers and maybe 2 Shoulders Edict, and like 1 or 2 Shoulders Edicts in their entire 75. A Ponder. Okay, so they're not going to be able to remove our creature this turn. I don't believe they have 1 mana answers for Marit Lage. So we should just be able to go get a Forest, Abrupt Decay this, and swing for lethal. They shuffled off the Ponder. They're playing a Wasteland, a bit late for that. They could fire it off still. They're going to take away our Abrupt Decay here. So we don't get to kill our opponent this turn. That is annoying. A Thoughtseize. Okay. That's reasonable. Let's fire that off as well since we're here. So they might have pondered into an answer for something. Okay, a Kaito. If they have a land... No, they can't put the Kaito in because they have to block with the Tamiyo this turn. So I don't care about the Kaito this turn. The Tamiyo can block next turn, which is annoying. We can just take that out and not have to worry about it. Or we take the Brainstorm. I think we just take the Tamiyo and just give them one turn to try and rip. Because they have to Brainstorm into both a land and an answer. Because all their answers cost 2. Now, it's certainly possible. You know, cantrip decks are very good at finding what they need. At this point, they should know if they are dead or not. They are dead. Excellent. And they did have the Harbingers like we deduced they would. I don't think you need to go up to 4 Abrupt Decays to deal with the Harbinger out of our opponent's decks, because we also need a whole bunch of other bits and pieces going on. And normally we're going to settle in underneath what they're doing. But you can board in the 4th one if you are worried about it. This is a turn 1 Wasteland, turn 2 Hexmage Depths. I would like to sign myself up for that one, please. And then we can Disruptor Flute on the Borrower as well, if our opponent is holding open specific Borrower mana. Thoughtseize. Okay, so they could take the Hexmage here, which is going to slow us down a little bit, but that's fine. They did take the Hexmage. Man, we drew another one. Let's go and get ourselves a Bayou here. Play the Lotus Petal just in case we need it. Also, we don't want it in our hand as well, because our opponent can take it out. Right, let's play Pithing Needle and play a Wasteland. Oh, sorry, name Wasteland with it. So next turn we can try and cast the Hexmage. The downside at the moment is we don't have another mana source, so we can be in trouble in that way. Okay, so just surveilling here. I put it in the graveyard. Good. Right, we'll make a Vampire Hexmage around days with this little spicy Elvish Spirit Guide. So we have Wasteland covered, so we don't need to fire this off now. If our opponent leaves open 2 mana, we can go to our turn and try Disruptor Flute first. Obviously, if they tap out, then we can change what we're doing. They're not attacking with the Tamiyo. That is normally a play that people do when they don't have an answer. This is just, we're going to try and chump your guy. But then why would they... Right, no, I think we're going to go for it here. We've got another Dark Depths already anyway. And we've shown that we can sort of wade through our opponent's things a little bit. Another Dark Depths, interesting. Alright, Marit Lage, out you come. Under the bus we go. Under the bus we go. And there is a Brainstorm. Sure. I think we should have played the Disruptor Flute in response, actually. That was a mistake. So we may as well do it in our opponent's upkeep here. Okay, now we'll respond with this. Petty Theft. Can I name Petty Theft? Is that a thing I'm allowed to name? I can't name Petty Theft. Okay. So you can put me for 1. That's fine. So Orcish Bowmasters being in the format is an actively good thing for Turbodepths players. Because while this is in the format, there's no like Ice Fangs or Baleful Strixes, which can jam you up a little bit. They can just play Brazen Borrower. They're going to put a Kaito in here. Yeah, that is the problem of doing it then. I was doing it then because our opponent was tapped out, but now they're going to tap our guy down, which is awkward. And there is a Tamiyo. Yeah, so we played around the Borrower and they had the Tamiyo, the Kaito. Not of this world. Alright, we can save our guy from the next round. Although they can just Thoughtseize and make sure that we don't have anything here. Or they can just go and get their Brainstorm back. I think our opponent has done enough here. Right, you can make your ninjas into slightly bigger ninjas. You can Bowmaster. So we're going to take a hit, what, 4, 5, 6 this turn. And next turn is 7. So we die next turn. So we're going to need to find a way out of this. For 1 mana, that might prove a little bit challenging. This is just 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we're just dead. Yeah, so we could have held the Disruptor Flute, and as soon as they ninjutsu this in, we can just name it, and that's fine. But if our opponent draws a Brazen Borrower that turn and we die to it, then sure. Like, they probably have 2 of each of this and 2 of the Brazen Borrowers. So we took a 50-50 shot on winning the game and lost. It happens sometimes. Let's go to round 2. We have a Sylvan Scrying which can find us what we need. I will keep this one. Even though we don't have direct access, we kind of do have access. Okay, what is this going to be? Thoughtseize. Well, let's cast this without paying mana costs. I'll take this Dark Depths. Alright, opponent, I have a combo that you can't Thoughtseize out of my hand. What should they take here? The Lotus Petal can slow us down a turn if they want a bit more time in this game. But if they're just trying to protect what they're doing, then maybe they take the Thoughtseize. They did take the Thoughtseize. Okay. We should have played the Thespian stage out here, really. But we'll see. Like, we can be rewarded for doing it this way as well. Because this way we can just play this and Dark Depths next turn. I'll play this out, so they've shown us they have a hand disruption. We're more likely to lose a Lotus Petal if it's in our hand than if it's in play, based on the information we currently have. Now, our opponent could just play a Plains and Prismatic Ending this. That is certainly a possibility. Gloom Lake Verge, what does this do? Activate only if you control an island or swamp. Okay, why is our opponent running that? Are they running a singleton deck? That is a possibility, isn't it? They don't have... Okay, I was going to say they don't have like a good option to daze here by bounce. So in the land they have to pay mana for it, sure. Okay, so I will play out this Thespian stage. If we draw a piece of... Actually, no, we just have an next turn anyway, right? We have the Dark Depths and we have the extra mana we need. Step through. So this is some kind of singleton deck where they're probably using Divining Witch to mill over their deck. Or Tainted Pact. Watery Grave, which explains why they have singletons here. Our opponent probably thinks they have one more turn than they do, which we're hoping to exploit by dumping this into play. Tainted Pact. Exile top card of your library. So they're going to get rid of all their library bar one card here. So we correctly identified some of the stuff our opponent was doing. Is there going to be a Divining Witch in here as well? Okay, so there's one Tainted Pact. So this can go wrong for them if they find another Tainted Pact. Right? Or do they only have two Tainted Pacts? That would be correct deck building, wouldn't it? You have two, and then you have Muddle the Mixture, which can find it. And we are one turn too slow. And then they win with the Oracle. Okay. Sure. Our opponent's deck is not going to be the most reliable thing, which is... guess this isn't really a Wasteland matchup, since they don't have multiple types of cards. But they might have more answers than you would normally expect. So we could be looking at something like this. Like the Disruptor Flute can name the Oracle and mess them up if they're going quickly. I like our hand disruption here a lot. I don't think this is a Bojuka Bog matchup. Let's just have another Disruptor Flute in. Do I want an Abrupt Decay for something? I don't think I do. And we're just going to send it like this. I didn't quite work out quick enough. Like we could have, instead of playing the Hexmage, we could have tried to make a 20/20 that turn instead using our fast mana. No, we couldn't, because we played the Bayou on turn 1, we didn't get to do that. So we didn't really have the information on turn 1 that that's what we had to do. So we, based on the information we had, I think we played that correctly. It just didn't work out. This is a turn 3 combo. We can take a turn off if we want to get the Safekeeper going. Let's try this once upon a time. I'll take the Spirit Guide, I believe. And I'll deploy this. And then we can hold up an emergency Disruptor Flute if we need to. Right, we've just got this Disruptor Flute ready to go. We can put in the Sylvan Safekeeper next turn. That gives us 1 bubble of protection. Quick Study. Draw 2 cards, 3 mana. Okay, just an instant speed divination. I guess you've got to do what you've got to do when you're playing singletons. I think we should be quicker than our opponent most of the time, though. Here is the Safekeeper. Trying to name the specific card with Disruptor Flute is not going to be the easiest thing in the world. We know that they're trying to win with Thassa's Oracle, so we can do that and make it a 5 mana play, so it's very hard to do all in one turn. Disrupting Shoal. Okay. So our opponent can't afford to tap out here because we are representing a kill. We can't name the correct protection because that's just going to be very difficult to do in our opponent's singleton deck. Let's jam this Disruptor Flute. Let's name Tainted Pact. Let's make that cost a bunch more. Elvish Spirit Guide. Not the most useful, is it? Alright, we'll go for a Ghost Quarter. Because we can Ghost Quarter one of our opponent's lands and that maybe messes up how they can interact with us. Because they have 1 more basic left in their deck, most likely. I guess they could have Snow Basics. Impulse. We'd like to have some protection here. But obviously our opponent is able to win sort of out of nowhere, so we need to be a bit aware of that. Sunken Ruins. Does feel like our opponent has something. I think we just have to try and find some protection. We found some protection. So this time we can go for it because we at least have something backing us up. So we probably want to fire off this Ghost Core in our opponent's main phase, their second main phase, so they don't have the mana post in like the end step. If we're trying to constrict our opponent's mana that way. Is that worth trying to constrict their mana, or do we just want more mana to pay? I think I just want more mana to pay here. Cast this now. That way there's no window where we don't have our lands in play. Is this going to be a Shoulder's Edict? It's the one we can't protect against. Sudden Edict. Similar but different. Okay, so we're going to have to find some more pieces here. Inquisition of Kozilek. Well, well, well. If it isn't the answer that I wish we had a second ago. Alright, let's find this off now because our opponent is a combo deck and we need to be a little bit worried about what they can achieve. There's an argument about whether or not we play an Elvish Spirit Guide here. Brainstorm to protect their hand. So we could Ghost Quarter them so they shuffle away these cards and don't have the things that they're trying to save. It is a May though, so they might just not do that. But then we just get a strip mine off. Alright, a minor misstep. Okay, so they won't even protect their hand, really. Alright, let's go on the offensive with some guy. How do you feel about some guy opponent? Get in there. Taking our Crop Rot is obviously a bit of a blow. So getting closer to just casting this Tainted Pact for 5 mana soon. Let's bash with this Spirit Guide. And then we'll Duress our opponent. Where were these Duresses earlier? 3 cards left in our opponent's hand. It's just going to be hard cast Force of Negation. Sauron's Ransom. Okay, Piece of the Puzzle digs pretty hard, but it's expensive. Don't really like to sink into Stupor. The top pile will be presented face up. Okay, I'll give them a Mana Leak. And Inquisition. They're going to just take the Inquisition, aren't they? I'll give them pieces. Because this is a sorcery, this is an instant, so it kind of messes up with what they want to do. And we can take one of them. We'll take the bottom one. We can just take the sink unless we have to take something from our opponent's combo. They did not take the sink, so they have a Mana Leak and a Piece of the Puzzle. Okay, what do we have here? They didn't Spell Pierce this, which is interesting. We just take the Piece of the Puzzle. I don't know why you wouldn't Spell Pierce that. I guess we have a load of mana, actually. That's why you wouldn't Spell Pierce it. Sorry, what am I thinking? I forgot we had all the mana up. Ignore me. Right, we're 1 card away from making a 2020 again. We can make our Thespian stage into a basic if we wish. Or we can turn it into a Bayou to give us more green mana. We can turn it into a Ghost Claw and start stripping away our opponent's resources is another option we have. Harbinger of the Seas. How do we feel about this? I will copy the swamp. I will Ghost Quarter. I could Ghost Quarter their swamp and then just shut them off of black mana forever. Or I could go and get my own green mana, which is probably the correct thing to do here. So they only have one of these in their deck. A Crop Rotation. Okay. A little bit behind where I want to be. They can Mana Link something, couldn't they? I don't think they're going to trade these off, are they? That'd be wild. Oh, they are going to trade them off. So I have Spell Pierce and Mana Leak. So I could just Crop Rotate right now, knowing that we can pay around what they have. They have 1 mystery card in hand. I'll pay for a Mana Leak if they have actual factual counterspell. That'd be very good here. Okay, so they could have Mana Leaked so that we couldn't make a 2020 in this turn cycle. So our opponent have a 1-of Wasteland they're going to draw. Our opponent's deck is cool. I don't particularly like playing singleton decks, really. But I think their deck is cool. Don't want to have some Abrupt Decay for their 1-of guy that they can maybe tutor for. It's certainly a thing that might be okay to have just access to. Just have a couple in there. A whole bunch of hand disruption. Okay, I'll keep this. Our deck is very good at finding the combo pieces. Because unlike our opponent, we just get to play as many of all the cards as we want. Because we don't have to just play 1-ofs to make our deck function. Which is good news for us. I think this is going to be a basic swamp. And then in comes the first piece of hand disruption. Narset, Spell Snare, Step Through, Force of Negation. Intriguing. Narset's kind of annoying, but that's a thing for later. Don't really like the Step Through very much. Because that finds them part of their combo, doesn't it? Alright, I'm going to take a Step Through. Just keep them away from their combo. Are they going to use a Force of Negation to stop our next piece of hand disruption? They sure might do. Okay, so let's fire off another Thoughtseize. We'll take the Narset here. A Flusterstorm. I guess we could have paid if we thought about things a little differently there. So I don't really just want to offer up my Sylvan Scrying to this Force of Negation. So I think we're just going to play this Turbodepths out. This way, if we draw into Thespian stage, we can just go next turn. Because we've got the fast mana. They're going to play out the Narset here. I'd be surprised if they didn't. Unless they got something better. There it is. Alright. And then we can try and pave the way using the Inquisition. So that we can get our Sylvan Scrying to resolve. Stock up. That's a pretty good one. An Elvish Spirit Guide, you say. Okay, let's Inquisition of Kozilek, our opponent. Which of these cards scares me the most? I kind of want to resolve our thing. So I guess we take the Force. I don't really like them having stock up there. Okay, let's resolve our spell. Next time we have access to a 2020. Yeah, Narset comes first. Have they got like a random wheel effect? A Sudden Edict. Okay. And the stock up. So probably have 1 Sudden Edict, 1 Shoulder's Edict, maybe 1 Brazen Borrower, and that's their answers. So it's kind of annoying for us they found one of them. Right, so we can tax our opponents so they always have to have 2 mana up. But our opponent has a lot in their grip. Kind of interesting deck. So we can draw Disruptor Flute and make the sudden edict cost a lot, but we do have to get through a spell snare as well. I think we made a mistake last turn as well, actually. I think the play is actually to have cast this last turn. Because then the sudden edict will eat our Spirit Guide instead. And Brainstorm over the top. We've got some action. They want to use that floating mana for something. Is it going to be a Tainted Pact? Or he's going to take my guy out now. A Sauron's Ransom. Sure. How am I want to split these up? Alright, you can have the face up Harvest of the Seas or your lands. You probably take the lands here. 3 is just such a juicy number. But we don't really care about the amount of lands our opponent has for the most part. Yeah, it took all the lands. Inquisition of Kozilek. This will hit our Once Upon a Time. It is what it is. Our opponent's got full 7 cards over there. Like, we weren't resolving this Once Upon a Time through the spell snare anyway. Thassa's Oracle. Are they going to cast a Tainted Pact in response? Or is this just digging for something? Okay, they didn't hold priority, so interesting. This does just roadblock our Elvish Spirit Guide for a hot minute though. That's such a weird play. That must mean they have another answer. It's the only thing that makes sense there. I'll hold this card in hand, I think, to... Actually, no, we know they've got soft permission. Let's just play this one out. Okay, so if our opponent makes a mistake, we can try and Ghost Quarter something in their main phase if they leave up the wrong mana. Muddle the Mixture. It's going to transmute into the Shoulder's Edict. Okay, so they're not leaving up in a way that we can Ghost Quarter them off of Shoulder's Edict here. They didn't fancy bashing for 1 either. I'll play the Urborg out. Alright. I guess we're going to manually remove some counters from the Dark Depths. Oh, they're coming in for 1 damage. Plague Engineer. They're going to name Vampire so that we can't play Vampire Hexmage. Another Dark Depths. Not the one I wanted, really. So we're waiting to try and draw either another thing that combos off, so like another Thespian Stage type card, or some hand disruption. 3 damage coming in. A Bayou. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, I guess we're in it. Very peculiar game, this one. Normally, removing ice counters like this is the best way to find something that goes with it. This Lotus Petal does actually make a difference here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So next turn we can manually make this the turn after we make it from the Thespian Stage. So we've got some lines. Sunken Hollow, Drowned Catacombs. It's like an EDH deck or something. Water Grave, tapped presumably. So we go to 7 and then we're going to go to 4 and then we make a 20-20 and try and win the game. Alright, let's remove some counters. So next turn we can make this, forces the Shoulder's Edict out. The Hexmage isn't very useful. If we make this now, they Shoulder's Edict, but then we just play another one. So you can Shoulder's Edict this one, but then we can untap and make another one. We don't even have to untap, actually. Alright, we sacrifice our thing. Game's getting weird. Well, it's been very weird for a while, to be honest. I haven't really seen any sorcery speed answers that I can think of, but our opponent's deck is just like a random assortment of blue-black cards, so could be anything. Alright, they're scooping it. So we managed to win with a hard cast, a hard fought 30 mana guy as our bait spell. Incredible. Alright, we are 1-1. Let's go to round 3. This hand is pretty darn slow. So we can Thoughtseize on 1, which is a nice tool to have. But then what are we doing? Like, we have to have 2 of these going. That's going to be so much time. I think we just do something a bit better. Okay. This is a turn 2. So next turn we just play this, use our fast mana and make a 20-20. Underground Sea. You're going to do Ponder. A Nethergoyf. Cool. That's certainly a guy that exists. Dark Depths. Go. If our opponent has a Wasteland, then we can hold off a turn and then Ghost Quarter away the Wasteland. But we might as well let them tap out. A Brainstorm. I don't think they can beat this with 1 mana. And we're going to respond to the Brainstorm here. So this forces them into having to play like a Tamiya or something to chump block. Then we maybe get to Thoughtseize their hand. Depends on what we draw. We do need the mana for the Thoughtseize. Polluted Delta. Am I going to see a spell I've never seen before that kills my Marit Lage? I hope not. Okay, they're Thoughtseizing us to get more information before scooping. That makes sense. But I will take it. Okay. So, I like Disruptor Flutes here. I don't know how many Brazen Borrows we have. I don't know how many Harbinger of the Seas they have. These are things I'm interested in. We do not require a Bojuka Bog. We're boarding in these things, so once upon a time gets worse. They don't have that many things that target our things, so we probably just want to have a couple of Not of This Worlds in. We probably don't need all of these Disruptor Flutes, we just have one. Alright, that looks pretty clean. Our deck is basically pre-boarded against like blue-red Delver. I usually just trim like the Bojuka Bog, and that's pretty much all I do. This hand does not cut it. We can name Wasteland. We've got the time to go and get our pieces set up here. It's a little sketchy. Let me throw out one of the Hexmages. Ponder, sure. So our turn 1 has to be the Pithing Needle on Wasteland, I believe. And I really don't want to have to use this Elvish Spirit Guide to get it through a daze, which we didn't, which is nice. So we shut off Wasteland, which is our opponent's best form of interaction. There are now counter spells and maybe 3 to 4 removal spells that we care about in their entire deck. Obviously, you know, if they make a load of pressure and they start hitting our life tail, we do care about that. But in terms of executing our game plan, which is what we should be focused on, we're all right. So next turn is use Elvish Spirit Guide to get a Dark Depths. I'm going to get Thoughtseize here. I'm just going to play an Netherglyph. Just an Netherglyph, that's fine. Okay. There's some weird lines. So we can float mana from this, rotate it into an Urborg, float mana. So there is a way that we could just try and win right now, but I don't think that's the correct thing to do. I think what we're supposed to do here is Sylvan Scrying for our Dark Depths. Okay, we have the Dark Depths. Interesting. We play the Dark Depths. And then next turn, we can make a 2020 with crop rotation back up to keep it alive. And maybe we also get to play around days on everything. A Baraglyph. This is an annoying creature for us, but we should be able to beat through it. Okay, let's go for a Hexmage here. I'm going to fetch a basic forest. Okay, so what we can do is we can block the Baraglyph and then sack to the Dark Depths. We can beat a Daze or a Force of Will, we can't beat both. They could have Kaito here. So flipping the Kaito, we can crop rotate. Okay, they didn't flip in a Kaito. So we have double crop rotation available for Sejiri Steppe. That guy does not help what they're trying to do right now. Sheoldred's Edict. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's the one we can't defend against. I'm not running Kalni Garden just for that card. Okay, so we have 3 mana here. So that's 3 mana. Let's go down to 2 mana. This becomes a Dark Depths. We tap it, go back up to 3 mana. This becomes a Thespian stage. So let me just work this out. So we go 2 mana here and 3 mana. We crop rotate. Go down to 2. Then we have +1 mana when we tap it. So that's 3 mana again. Then we go down to 2 mana to turn this into a Thespian stage. Then we can make a 2020 right now. So we can make a 2020 and instant speed. If our opponent has counter magic, we lose. But I think that's the line we're taking. So we crop rotate this away. So we have the Force of Will. That's obviously a bit of a blow for us. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're not quite dead, but okay. So we could have Thoughtseize first. We wouldn't have had the mana to assemble a 2020 that turn. So they did have to have pretty specific cards in their hand there. If they can mill over a type they don't have, then we lose. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How are we supposed to beat them on 1 life here? We can't make a hasty guy. I think we're just going to lose here, you know. But we get to see more of our opponent's cards first. Still no Harbinger, but they must have one. We're not seeing the red splash, which means they have access to 1 or 2 Harbingers. We'll play 1 more turn in case we get a piece of hand destruction, then we can get some more information about our opponent. They're going to see some cards they've already seen, so I don't care about this. But maybe we get to see something we haven't seen if we draw a piece of hand disruption. So knowledge of what you're playing against is obviously really crucial with our deck. So, do I want to Disruptor Flute in to name Sheoldred's Edict more than a Not of This World? That's certainly an option, isn't it? We'll try it like this. It means that if we name the Shoulder's Edict, they're going to have the Borrower, and vice versa, because that's how Magic the Gathering works sometimes. But on the play, this is a matchup we should be winning most of the time anyway. Bit of an interesting one, this. It has some serious limitations. I think we can do better on a 6. Okay. This is somewhat stable at least. I think we keep this and get rid of a crop rotation. I'm going to play a turn 1 Sylvan Scrying. This is because I would rather have this out of our hand so our opponent can't Thoughtseize it. If they force of will this, then we can crop rotate. But do you want to force of will this? Probably. But if they don't have a force of will, we get this in underneath the days and it can't be Thoughtseize out of our hand. Alright, and if they do force of will it, it means that the crop rotation, which is a scarier one to lose to something like a counterspell, doesn't happen. Now if they have the Thoughtseize as well, then sure. That is 2 key pieces of interaction by the end of the first turn. That's not a bad place for our opponent to be. I will deploy this Swamp, I believe. We could play the Thespian stage out in case we draw Dark Depths next turn. But I quite like having our basics underneath us so that when we have the Thespian stage, we can copy either basic. Like we could play this out and then use the Elvish Spirit Guide. Like the one draw that punishes us for doing it this way is Dark Depths itself, which we didn't find. Okay, so this becomes Dark Depths. Then we have 2 mana. Alright, we can give that a whirl. We're doing our opponent's turn to dodge any sort of force of negation stuff. Right, so now it's Wasteland to contend with. We have a lot of ways of answering a Wasteland though. An Elvish Spirit Guide, that's not actually going to help us that much, is it? Orcish Bowmasters, that's fine. So we're looking for like our many Disruptor Flutes or Pithing Needle. We've got a lot of outs here. Like this is definitely the worst of all the tempo matchups for us to play against, the straight blue-black one. Okay, I don't think we're doing anything there. A Pithing Needle, you say? Do you want to Wasteland their opponent? So thinking what they could have in hand. They're probably going to have either like a big like Kaito level thing they didn't want to play because they tapped out of Wasteland, or they have answers. So we can just copy this if we want to and blank their Wasteland. Or we could just try and send it right now. We're on 11. I think I'm going to try and send it. This does lose to removal, but our opponent is beating us down for 6 a turn. So they've only got 2 turn clock. We can't really afford to wait much longer. Have they got the Borrower? The Borrower this time? It's the Edict, sure. So the Grixis builds of this deck have 1 Edict in. Whereas the blue-black builds tend to have multiple. So they normally have like a 2 and 2 split, so they actually have more answers for us. I think this is actually the worst tempo deck at the moment. I think the Grixis build is better because it doesn't auto-scoop to Kaito and things. But for us specifically, this is the worst of the tempo matchups. The blue-black has obviously put up a lot fewer numbers than the Grixis as well. But again, it's just one of those things where it's important to know your enemy. So what are we going to do to win this game? We could draw a land and an Abrupt Decay. That's going to keep us alive for a little bit longer. I think we're just dead here, though. This is going to make their guy a 5-5, a 5-6, sorry. If it's 5, 6, 7, we kill this at 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I think we're just dead here. All right, we can scoot that one up. Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate. They had the Force of Will and the Thoughtseize on turn 1. And they also had the Shoulder's Edict for when we went off in response to their Wasteland. So, you know, it's sometimes going to happen. This matchup is the worst of the tempo matchups, but we're still pretty good into tempo matchups generally. Like the blue-red tempo matchup is very good for us. This one is fine. It's pretty 50-50. All right, let's go to round number 4. The lovely people over at 3for1 Trading are doing a spring sale from May 7th to May 12th. Get 5% off of all orders over $500 with free worldwide shipping by using the code SPRINGSALE25. Their support helps make this channel viable for me, so support them by clicking the link in the description of this video to browse their enormous inventory and find whatever you need for your Magic collection. So this hand is interesting. This is a turn 2, 2020. I'll keep this. I'm playing Urborg and a Lotus Petal. Okay, we might have to fight our way through some counter magic. We'll see. A Pithing Needle. So we have 3 mana here, so we can Pithing Needle and do our thing here. Interesting. Probably going to crack their Flooded Strand here. What sort of blue deck is our opponent running? Basic Island. Okay. I'm reluctant to just send it into potential counterspells over there. Right. We don't need to send into counterspells. We just have the thing. Cool. And we have some crop rotations to attempt as well. We can wait a turn. Caracas. That's a bit rude, isn't it? So our plan is to crop rotate away our Bojuka Bog into a Ghost Quarter and use that to kill the Caracas. Sejiri Steppe does not protect from Caracas activations. We need to fire this off in our opponent's main phase, so they have less mana for their end step. Ponder, sure. Let's try Crop Rot. Crop Rotation. Okay, a Force of Will over there. So we could do a really all-in play here, but I think given the time we have, we don't need to do a really all-in play. We can just go and have another... Okay, we drew the thing that I wanted to draw anyway. Okay, so we can Ghost Quarter this in our opponent's main phase, make our guy, and we also have Crop Rotate for Sejiri Steppe to cover us for 1 removal spell. Because if we do this in the end step, they can have 2 white floating, and that's 2 removal spells in a turn cycle, and that's too many. You can cast anything there? Alright, let's do the thing. This is going to be a horrible matchup for us, generally speaking. But it's not unwinnable. 4 mana. Venser. Alright, I haven't seen one of those in a hot minute. You can target our guy. Let's Crop Rotate our Urborg away. Do you have another counterspell? They do not, so we get to win the game. That's not. Big fan of winning the game. Big old 20. So our opponent's going to be mainly interacting with us trying to kill our creatures. So I'd like some Not of This World. I'd like some Disruptor Flutes. Get these Sylvan Safekeepers in there. Our opponent's probably playing some sort of like wizardy deck. So I've seen a few of these decks using Flames of Anor as like their version of Stock Up, because it can kind of do multiple things. We don't really need a Bojuka Bog here. The Pithing Needle is interesting. Not certain how much we need it though. We probably have some number of Planeswalkers and things. This would give us a clean selection of things. We can always name them with the Disruptor Flutes. And I think we're going to run something that looks like this. We can always reappraise the situation and put these Pithing Needles back in. But the main thing our opponent's going to be doing is trying to remove our creatures. I don't believe they have Wastelands in their deck. If they're running Mystic Sanctuary, they kind of need to be making a whole bunch of land drops. I don't know if they have the Harbinger. But in theory, we want to be going underneath all of their stuff anyway. So hopefully we can get around it that way. There's always a game 3 if they show us some more information. This does not do anything. This does some stuff, as long as I can resolve my Sylvan Scrying. I think we keep that and get rid of the Elvish Spirit Guide. I imagine our opponent's going to index quite heavily into like white removal spells. That would make sense. Right, let's go and get this Sylvan Scrying on the road. Okay, so we have our combo. We have a lot of protection, in fact. So we're actually lined up in a pretty okay spot. Now, I don't know the exact contents of my opponent's decks. There are definitely ways that this can go a little bit squiffy for us. We'll worry about that later. Another Not of This World is another lovely thing to have access to here. What am I going to play? Probably the Stage. This way if we have fast mana we can speed things up a little bit. I will deploy the Sylvan Safekeeper because of the couple of Not of This Worlds we have. Whether or not I defend the Safekeeper is interesting. Are we about to just get hit by Harbinger of the Seas? You don't normally see Harbinger of the Seas out of like Jeskai control decks, but we'll see. Getting a basic is kind of suggesting that that's the thing they're looking at doing. They would like to plow our guy. Sure, you can plow the guy. He's just going to take up one of your removal spells. I think they would slam a Harbinger if they had it there, so that's not fast mana. Let's see if we can bait out a counter spell here. We don't want counter spells to hit our things. Okay, a Spell Snare. Sure. We don't want counter spells to hit our Not of This World, so we're trying to just bait them out. This would be the last opportunity our opponent has to try the Harbinger of the Seas line, if they have that in their deck. I'm not going to crack this Verdant Catacombs. Now I will crack it. Because I don't want to play the Dark Death out if something weird's going to happen to us. Nothing weird happened to us, that's good. Alright, you are in check, opponent. You need to have some interaction here. We have the ability to make a 20/20 with 2 pieces of protection. So Teferi is a thing that could be in our opponent's deck that can mess us up. Flames of Anor, draw 2 cards. Sure. That's the thing that I said before. I've seen a few people doing a lot more wizardy stuff in the old Jeskai builds. Maybe we'll try and get one of these decks on the channel at some point. Let me know if you want to see the Jeskai. That's what the comments are for. If you see me play something cool that you want to see me play, let me know. A Caracas, 5 cards in our opponent's hand. Is this getting better for us or not is the question. I think we're just going to send it and rely on our double piece of interaction or protection. Like, we're halfway to going again anyway. Say no to that one. A Spell Pierce. Try it again. quite the pause here. They have potentially 2 Swords to Plowshares they could leverage. But I think we just have to pick our spot here and try and go for it. If they've got some more interaction, then we lose. But our opponent's sculpting a whole bunch. We don't get to sculpt that same way. You know, we have lots of tutors to assemble the thing we're doing. But if we're looking for other pieces to go along with the thing we're doing, you know, like a piece of hand disruption or whatever, then we're in trouble. Okay. I'll play out the stage. I'll attack for 20 and hopefully win the game. All right, we got the match. These sorts of Jeskai control decks generally are pretty tough. But the newest sideboarding that I'm doing with the extra Sylvan Safekeepers and stuff seems to help. Like if we didn't have that Safekeeper, they would have had another Plow. So, all right, 4 rounds in. We are currently 2-2, and the ones we lost were pretty close as well. So let's go to the final round and see if we can put positive on the board. We have no access to Dark Depths. So you can keep hands that don't have access to like Hexmage or Thespian Stage because we effectively have 16 copies of the thing that goes with Dark Depths because of all of our tutors. But actual Dark Depths we only have 12 copies of effectively. So we need to mulligan if we don't have access to it. This does have access to it. And some protection. I'll keep this. I'll bottom of Bayou. Leyline of Transformation. Oh, this is the Tony Scapone Sliver deck, maybe? Yeah, so what it does is it makes infinite Memnites because you make your Memnites into slivers, and Hibernation Sliver or something Sliver makes them have Replicate, so you can pay the mana cost of it when you cast it to get that many copies, and because Memnite is 0, you can just pay as many as you want. Okay, I don't remember if this deck had any Wastelands in. I don't think it did, because the mana base was already a little bit sketchy, so we're just going to duress our opponent. Force of Will, Gale Rider Sliver, Hatchery Sliver, that's the one. So, one of the many good reasons you should watch Tony Scapone's content, not just because it's great, but because you can see some weird stuff, and people like Tony Scapone for good reason, and they like to play the weird stuff he builds. Misty Rainforest. Brainstorm. Okay, that's a good one. Can't quite remember everything that was in this deck. Definitely needed a little help to go off. A Pithing Needle. I think we are just casting a Sylvan Scrying here. Let's do our own thing. Alright, there is the Dark Depths. And we'll pass it over. Tropical Island. They're casting something end step. And once upon a time, pitching a Spirit Guide. So we don't know what is in our opponent's hand. Alright, our opponent might just have the combo assembled here. There is the Hatchery Sliver. Now they get to do the thing. So they can replicate this as many times as they want. They've made some guys. This isn't something we get to Pithing Needle, so... If we get to... How many copies did they put on the stack? I was going to say we can... Okay, they put 50. So there's going to be 50-odd little friends here. I think we can scoop this up because Modo is having a tough time trying to resolve these things. I think it's just easier if we just scoop it through. Although, it might have just crashed it. Okay. It doesn't like someone replicating a Memnite 50 times. Okay, so... Our opponent, we want to blow some of their stuff up and we want to protect our creatures. So... Those come out, these come in. Safekeeper's probably pretty good here. We can take out this Disruptor Flute and this Bojuka Bog. I would like this Not of This World in. Where are we going to fit it in? Probably the Duress. Oh, the Duress is okay, but I think we'll take the Duress out. And this should be fine. Our opponent's deck is very fragile. So... Alright, we can keep this. It doesn't interact with what our opponent's doing, but we can go underneath them. Okay, so they have the Leyline. So basically this deck, if it doesn't have a Leyline in its opener, doesn't really work. I think Tony was mulliganing really aggressively to find it. Okay. So this is... I think we want to do this in our opponent's upkeep. Let's go and get ourselves a forest. This is so they can't force of negation this. Alright, so we can get the Urborg. So we have a turn 2. Our opponent can also make Infinite Guys turn 2, but because we're on the play, we would win that exchange. Once upon a time. There is the Hatchery Sliver. A Pithing Needle. Are they going to name Thespian Stage or are they going to name Vampire Hexmage? We have both. They could name Hexmage if they want to just slow us down. They do just want to slow us down. Understood. Are we going to lose to this Hatchery Sliver deck? Maybe not. Okay, so I will play out this Thespian Stage and I will Thoughtseize my opponent. We will take... They have a Wasteland. How are you fitting Wastelands in this deck? It's incredible. I will take this Hatchery Sliver, because that's the only thing I think really matters here. I'm just going to play the Wasteland and sit on it, or they're going to fire off immediately. There goes the Ponder. A green source would certainly give us some assistance in casting our Sylvan Scryings. You need to go and find answers for this Wasteland now that our opponent has them. Crop Rotation, that is not what we get to do anything with here, is it? So we can play out the Dark Depths, and then our opponent has to leave up this Wasteland at all times. I think that's okay. And then if we find any green source, we can float some mana, and then go and get the thing we're after. What's it called? The Crop Rotation. No, the Ghost Quarter. Found the Bayou. Okay, we can make an attempt to win the game soon. That was exciting for us. A Hedge Maze, sure. We don't want to see a second Wasteland here. That would be annoying. Flooded Strand. 4 cards in hand. Let's try and crop rotate this Urborg away. So we have our Ghost Quarter. We target their Wasteland. Now it's your turn to act, opponent. They should go for the Bayou here. Yeah, that's the correct one. Unfortunately, do they have a Source of Plowshares? They do not. Okay, so we found a nice little way through there. I think how we sideboarded here probably makes a lot of sense, although we did see some Wastelands. So maybe we do need some Pithing Needles in our deck. Tough times. Our opponent's got like a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe this isn't a Sylvan Safekeeper matchup, which means we board out the Once Upon a Time and keep the Pithing Needles in. I just don't know how they can fit all of these different elements in their deck, really. Like having Wastelands, having Caverns, all that sort of jazz. This does not win the game. It can blow up our opponent's thing, although if they just have priority, it's very hard to actually interact with that. Okay, this works. It's a little slow, but I like having the Abrupt Decays. Although our opponent probably just... given our deck, our opponent might play out the Hatchery Sliver. I'll keep this, and what are we going to bottom? I think it's the Ghost Quarter. I can always chew that up later if we want it to. I'd rather just have my colours underneath me. I don't think our opponent gets to run anything like Harbinger of the Seas. They didn't start with the Leyline. That is going to be a real problem for them. A Savannah. You going to play that Savannah, or you got a different land in mind? There's a Savannah. Pithing Needle. Would you like to name... I guess we can blow it up when the time comes anyway. Hexmage, sure. That is the one that comes down quicker usually. So I understand. And obviously we immediately draw it. But we can blow up the Pithing Needle when the time comes. Cavern of Souls, naming Sliver. Who would have guessed? Crystalline Sliver. Slivers have Shroud. Okay. You got it. I'm going to play a first strike creature. And our opponent might not be interested in interacting with it. Yes, I thought they might not be interested in interacting with it. And then next turn, we play the Dark Depths, and then we can just blow this up and make it 20/20. And our opponent will be like, oh. And we'll be like, smash, smash. And then the game will be over. That's the plan. First strike into the Sliver is pretty good. They can play a Muscle Sliver here. More Shroud. You can have all the Shroud you want, but when we have a first strike guy, we get to ball. I'll play this. I will... Am I going to attack for 2 here? I think I am. No, they don't want to double block. This just forces through an extra couple of points of damage, which could be relevant if they have any like incidental life gain. So we're going to do this now to get around any sort of Wastelands. So we have a 20/20 with 2 bits of protection because we can crop rotate into the Sejiri Steppe here. So I think we're odds on to win this one. Our opponent agrees and the match is over. Awesome. So we finished 3-2. We lost a couple of rounds, a couple of close rounds to blue-black tempo where one single card difference either way, like if we'd have drawn the right, like if we'd have drawn one good thing when we didn't, or our opponent didn't draw the good thing when they did, then I think we could have won those matchups. So, you know, they're pretty coin flippy with the blue-black, but we're favoured against blue-red massively, and we're pretty favoured against Grixis. It's just the blue-black build has more things that directly interact with Marit Lage, at the cost of having things that interact with things like Kaito and Murktide Regent in the format necessarily, because they don't have any of the Red Blast or the Molten Collapses. All right, let's talk about this deck. As you probably know, I adore this deck. It's one of the few decks I actually play in paper tournaments, and I think the deck is really good into tempo metas. You know, that's the reason to run it. It struggles into like Death and Taxes, lands heavy matchups, The Bant control style decks are pretty horrible, like Beanstalky stuff, but Beanstalk is on the decline right now because it's just not able to pull its weight against some of these combo decks that are running around, which is, you know, good news for us because we have main deck graveyard hate. So if our opponent isn't Ouphe or spelling on turn 0, we can at least crop rotate for a Bojuka Bog, so we've got a little out there, and then we've obviously got the Leylines to help out the sideboard. And usually their backup plans against us aren't very good. So I've got a pretty solid record into Ouphe or spells in the data I've been collecting while playing this deck. We are a little bit shy of 70% win rate with this current build. That is with the 3 Collector Ouphe instead of the 2-2 split here. That's what I've generally been running, but today I thought I'd try a slight difference. And honestly, the Disruptor Flute was pretty good. We did board them in a few times. I think they come in against more matchups probably than the Collector Ouphe does, but the Collector Ouphe is more essential for winning those matchups it comes in than the Disruptor Flute is. So it's kind of an interesting trade-off there. But big plus today, we managed to make a 30 mana 2020 today. Haven't got to do that on the channel for... I don't know if I've ever done that on the channel. Maybe... Actually, no, I think I did it in some sort of weird White Depths build a few years ago. But yeah, we got the 30 mana 2020, and it won us a game by absorbing a piece of removal. So that's pretty spicy. I am a favour of this Disruptor Flute build, and I will have a sideboard guide to this build. Maybe it will have 2 Disruptor Flutes rather than the 1 and 3 of Collector Ouphe. But I'll have a sideboard guide to this out in like a week or so anyway. Just going to run some more leagues with it and do a little bit of practice in my own time to see the best in and out numbers for it. But if you like this deck, check out my Patreon. If you like buying Magic the Gathering cards, check out 3-for-1 Trading. If you like watching legacy content, click that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel and doesn't cost you anything. Alright, thank you so much for watching and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.